Hello, and welcome back to the Hilariously Unemployed. You know me, it's the big speaker. I'm so excited to be back before you. I know y'all missed me after that episode I had with Jay Jones. I know the streets was a little hungry because the profiler, like he was giving us some real tea, some real tips, and some tactics people are using to spam and hurt job seekers. So I was so excited to put that episode out. I hope that it helps somebody. I know Jay is truly on his journey to make sure that nobody is taken advantage of by these scam recruiters, these scam profiles. So what have I been up to? Well, y'all probably don't know. Some of y'all do. Halloween is my favorite holiday. So yesterday I acted a fool, right? And I'm coming down from all of that Candy Crush. But I'm super excited to be in the building and talking about something that I'm passionate about. I'm on a mission to get somebody hired through this podcast, but also I'm creating a community of job seekers and people who are really going through it, trying to help them get through it. So I love to provide resources to you all. What's next on the horizon for Big Speaker? Well, next week I have an exciting guest as well. And I can't wait to bring that guest to you. But I'll be doing some traveling after that. I'm going to Afro Tech, y'all, for the very first time. So I'm excited about that also. And I'm going to bring you back all that Afro Tech tea, tell you what was going on there, who I met, who I didn't meet, and what was going down. But today, I am excited for my guest. I actually met my guest when I was at Thrive Conference, which I told you all about with Black Men in Tech. I did not leave with the Black Men in Tech, but I did leave with some great friends and some great resources to bring to my audience. So yes, I'm still hilariously single if y'all needed to catch up on that. Anyway, for my hilarious, I'm excited to bring to you career hacker Nate. He's going to be sharing some amazing tips, some forecasts. We're going to talk about some risk, how to see the writing on the wall, and he's going to give y'all some stories that can hopefully help you along your way. Welcome to the show, Career Hacker Nate. Say hello to the hilarious.
Hey Dana, how's it going? Hey, what do we call them? Hilarious.
Hilarious.
How y'all doing?
We are doing good today. How have you been since Thrive Conference, Nate?
I've been good. The conferences always throw me out of my routine a little bit, so just trying to jump back into like work mode and actually staying focused on some stuff. But it's been great, man. I think this was the second time I went to Thrive, and
Mhm.
he's taking it up each year. So I'm happy for Cam. I'm glad the storm didn't wipe him out completely, and he still got it off.
I know. Hurricane be damned. Okay. We were in the building. I'm very, very happy that we were able to still attend and have such a great time. And I was able to meet wonderful people like yourself and so many others. Actually, Ashley Parker, who was on the panel with me at Thrive, she was like, "Oh, you should meet Nate if you have a podcast that talks about job seeking." And I was like, "Hello, I have a podcast. I talk about jobs. What's up?" So socially awkward, but
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I love hopping on camera and doing some chatting about career seekers and career development, what to do, what not to do, and really um, how the market is moving and sort of what are some things to look out for. But one thing for sure, everybody's journey is going to be, unique and very individualized. So hopefully, there's some good takeaways that someone kind of learned from this conversation.
I'm confident. So we'll start this thing like I start every show. Have you ever been hilariously unemployed, Nate?
I have not. I have not.
Boo!
Nope.
I
I'll
want to
take
change my screening process.
I'll take that boo. I'll take that boo any day.
Right. Like, oh, I'm employed. Boo to me. Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
Okay. So technically, you've never been unemployed by someone asking you to leave their organization. But have you ever stepped away from a role? And what was that period like for you?
The only time I like voluntarily resigned from a position and I didn't necessarily have something else to go to was when I started my own business last year. And I had been building myself up to that. I actually wanted to do it probably like 3, 4 months prior to that. But I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the heart because I've always had a paycheck. And so the idea of jumping out there on my
Boo!
own. Listen, you're not gonna keep shaming me for paying bills.
Right. It's hard out here.
But nah, it took a lot for me to step away, and I kind of have I don't want to call it a cheat code, but I'm a recruiter by trade. Like I've been recruiting for a long time. So I think when you're in recruiting, and mind you, there are hundreds, thousands of people in talent who got laid off. So I'm not saying it like that, but you can see some pretty clear indicators of when layoffs may be coming when you're recruiting, because the first thing they do is tell you to stop recruiting. And so that's usually the first sign. Like if they say, "Nah, hold off on these roles," with no clear reason, I'm like, cool. And then they make you do a couple of busy projects and stuff like that. And then
Mhm.
when you start to try to present those projects and start talking about future plans, and they just kind of tell you, well, let's just hold off and see. Once they tell you like don't touch anything right now, you kind of know, all right, something's about to drop here. And so I've always been able to kind of read those early signs, and
Mhm.
either reposition myself internally to where I can add more value to my role, or I'm gonna start to like aggressively look for something else.
So recruiters are kind of the first to know. That's funny that you say that. So my very first episode, I had a previous coworker who was laid off prior to me from the same organization. And I
Mhm.
remember she was, of course, recruiting, and then they let's hold off on these roles. We're gonna close some of these recs. And they had her working on the LinkedIn to make it like show the culture of the company, get some
Mm,
testimonials from employees. So it's that busy work that they try to put in the interim before it's like, okay, we're not going to hire anybody and we're not going to keep you because that's not going to be what a facet of our business for much longer. So I guess recruiters do kind of get some of that inside tea because your job is to bring more people.
once they start asking you to do that busy work in those projects, like I say, you can one or two things: either really try to figure out what's going on internally and where they may continue to hire, and see if you can get yourself on that team or responsible for that type of work, or like I say, you should start to figure out how to make an exit, because
Mm.
usually it's not going to turn around. There has been times, I don't want to say it's like with 100% certainty, but recruiting takes a lot of momentum. Like you really have to get in a rhythm. And so once they like hit the brakes on everything until you just stop interviewing, stop reaching out to new candidates, let all the candidates you have go, and
Mhm.
you're starting from scratch. Man, okay, like something's about to happen, because not only do y'all not need any new people, clearly you don't need me, because that's my job to bring people in. Then usually you're gonna let some people go. So it's kind of easy to tell sometimes.
So at that point, as a recruiter, do you automatically start saying like, "Let me find something else"? Do you wait it out, or what's the typical role that you would take? The typical steps that you would take when something like that happens?
Great question, Dana. Again, my advice to people is usually, what is your personal situation? Um, so when I was at Lyft, I actually survived 3 rounds of layoffs. And so after the second one, when I knew a third one was coming, I was I was just gonna ride it out and just take the hit. Like it was like, okay, like I've survived two. If I get hit this time, I had already sort of did a little bit of research and understanding like what the severance is based on
Mhm.
how long I've been there, how many weeks they're going to pay me out, how long is insurance covering for. So I had a plan. So like, okay, like I'm gonna get this. This is how much money I have in my bank currently, and I just kind of started to put some feelers out. And then when I found out I survived the interview, I'm like, okay, like that was surprising. I was kind of ready to go. I want to be honest. I like cut me my check, like because
Oh, you wanted
it
to be
was
hilarious so bad, Nate.
right, since you booing me for it. But nah, I mean, you told me that you survived some rounds of interviews as well, so you know what that feeling is like after as well. Like it's not great either. Don't get me wrong. Like you're usually very happy that you weren't laid off, that it wasn't your time, but it's like just a very grim type of somber mood around the company. And I had already been through that for, twice already. And I was like, I'm just kind of over it. Like I was just ready to kind of start fresh. But I was like, cut me my check first. Like I'm not going to just, because I was thinking I can get the check and I can still, go look for another job, but make sure I get this check first. I didn't want to leave prior to, because I knew they wouldn't have paid me off a severance. Um, but I survived, and then I was able to uh, sort of put some fillers out. Like the next job I moved to was very fast. Like I actually moved ahead of talent at a startup, but it
Mhm,
was through my network, and it moved a lot quicker than I thought. And so I just jumped on it because the opportunity was there. Because things still didn't pick back up after that round of layoffs, and so I was like, okay, like I felt like they were going to do more cuts because they actually retained a lot more of the TA team than I thought they would. And
mhm,
so again, like just kind of understanding the way businesses operate, like they still didn't tell us to get back to recruiting. So I felt like something else was still going on. And then they did end up having like a fourth round, like 2 months after I left.
yeah,
So but to answer your question, it depends on people's personal situations. Like sometimes writing it out is in your best interest because you might survive, get shifted over to a new role, and now that position is a lot more stable. Your team may get cut tremendously, and now it's just you and maybe one or two other people literally carrying the load of what was once a 10-person team. And so now like, okay, they definitely need us. And you can kind of measure and gauge how much longer you may have at that organization. Um, if you know for sure that you cannot risk being without work, severance or not, like you just can't do it. You might be the breadwinner in your household. You might have a lot of expenses, a lot of debt, whatever it may be.
mhm,
That severance check it can get going pretty quick. So like, and so you have to understand your personal situation, and so it may be in your best interest to. I wouldn't recommend it, but even if it was to move to something else that isn't matching your current pay, but it's more stable, because at least now you're not sort of getting knocked on your ass, if that makes sense. Like I always try to tell people, you want to keep your feet under you at least sometimes, even if you're not making as much as you once did, having some sort of consistent income, at least like you're not like in a state of desperation. And so you
mhm.
can still make some very strategic moves.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of job seekers do end up in that state of desperation. My severance was chewed up, honey, very quickly.
Hey, when money not coming in, even when I left my job voluntarily, and I was like, I've been preparing for this, I've been stacked up, but it took me a while to build up my clientele.
Yeah,
When you just paying bills and nothing else is coming in, boy, but that number starts shrinking fast. Like
it was rough.
so so I know the feeling. I know the feeling, but yeah, you have to. And I mean, it's something that comes with age. Like I said, I don't know how old each individual is, and how many dependents you have, or what
Mhm.
your lifestyle is. But all of that are sort of factors that you have to account for when you're trying to decide: am I going to try to ride out a potential layoff? Should I leave now? Should I stay? Um, I always, again, it kind of depends on your current brand and your current reputation in an organization. But oftentimes, if you know the right person, you can even get heads up on pending layoffs, or know that person that, like, hey, we're about to make some changes. Usually it's the way they talk about it. We're about to make some
Oh,
changes. And so if you start here and we're about to make some changes, and then you start asking what these potential changes may look like, and start to understand, what are the teams that are going to be most important or most valuable in this post change world, and try to align yourself with those teams or those individuals, that can help you sort of stay through that layoff as well.
yeah. I mean, it for me, and like you can say there's a state of delusion. After the third round, I'm like, there's no way it's gonna be me. I'm a part of the fabric of this organization. You're not. When they tell y'all it's a family,
And
it ain't.
I I usually have pretty good reputation and brand at companies I'm at, but at the same time, after 2020, it's hard for a company to convince me that. I'm not gonna say they don't care, but I just understand how they operate and what they're gonna do. And so yes, that delusion is something you want to try to avoid. And again, like, I don't want to say all companies are bad and they're out to get you or anything like that, but you just have to make sure you're staying very, very vigilant, I guess, and very cautious about the situation, especially in our cases where we had seen multiple rounds, right? Like
Mhm.
in every round, there's that person like, I can't believe it. Like, how did they, like everybody's in that state of shock.
Yeah.
Getting the rug pulled out from under you financially is tough. And like I say, I as a recruiter, like I talked to literally like hundreds of candidates who have been laid off and stuff like that. And each individual has their own story. Um, you know, it completely knocks some people back, and then some folks were like, yeah, I kind of knew it was coming. I took my check. Like it's all good. I took a month and just spent some time with family before getting back in the job search. So like everybody kind of has their own way of going about how they can navigate it. But again, nobody, even the company doesn't know that, right? Like they just do a chop. Like they don't know who's already 2 months behind on rent or mortgage or something. Like they don't know what's going on. So they're just, being very unbiased in their layoffs and and just cutting everybody. But that each individual has to understand, what their strategy is going to be if they find themselves in that situation.
Absolutely. So those hundreds of people that you are talking to that have layoff stories, tell them to hit me up so I can share the story on the show.
It's a lot. You're gonna have to do two a
Please
day.
tell them, hey, I'm here for the people. So they have a hilarious layoff story, like a lot of my guests have had. Of course, there is trauma in it, but if they can laugh at it, I'm like, we got to turn lemons into laughter. So, but let's talk about what you're passionate about, which is kind of predictions. As a talent acquisition leader, what are some current predictions for the job market, especially in light of the economic changes, because things are so expensive right now?
So this year has actually been a little hard to sort of measure from a recruiting and job market standpoint. And I saw it and I felt it just anecdotally, in being in my role as a recruitment consultant and reaching out to different candidates and trying to find new clients. A
Mhm.
lot of individuals, um, one aren't moving jobs if they already have one, and then a lot of clients aren't looking to hire until they kind of figure out some things. If I'm being honest, like the election has been like the number one reason. Things
Yeah.
have been kind of off, but just because we have such, stark differences in plans for the economy and what that will look like depending on who's going to be in office. And
Mhm.
so that's most of the time, in previous years, presidential election, like we know things are going to stay kind of mid road, right? Like
Mhm.
usually you don't have a candidate that's going to yank us too far to the left or the right, but in this case, that's something that we're all kind of like, damn, like how, what is this going to look like? Shit. Even people like, should I even stay in the US? Like, should I, look to find a remote job so that I can work abroad and live in another country if that's going to be the case or whatever. So it's kind of hard to answer that question not knowing literally in a week like who's gonna be running the country, and it's gonna have such a drastic impact in one person saying we want to add more jobs, we want to build this out, and we want to really kind of build out the middle class and make
Mhm.
sure that things are more affordable. And then you have another one saying I'm going to tax this and that and tariffs, and I'm not going to worry about this. And so it's just kind of hard. Whereas in previous years, what I would tell someone is kind of be able to look at your industry and which way it's heading.
Mhm.
Um, Even now, like I think a lot of positions, if you know for sure that, um, let's say like AI or automation or some of these new systems and platforms that are designed to democratize certain industries, and kind of give everyone the capability to do this kind of work. Like if
Mhm.
you see that ticking up, if you see that there are less positions open than what you've seen in previous years, less movement of your peers moving from company to company, which usually means like there's less availability of that type of role. My advice to those individuals is one, either make sure you secure your spot at your company, and whether that's um, you know voting against bringing in new systems that could potentially edge you out,
Mhm.
or is it about almost rebranding or recreating yourself within your organization to show that you can do more than what you've been doing. um, in my experience in recruiting, most of the time a company if it's in their best interest, they want to retain people, right? Because when
Yeah.
they bring someone new in, that person's usually going to cost more. You got to train them, so you're losing money and having to pay a higher salary, as well as you're losing money in productivity hours, because it's going to take them like 3 or 4 months to really start to contribute to the company. And
Yeah.
so if you can figure out how to, you know, show the leadership or the team or whomever that, okay, I've been in this marketing role, and you see that, I hell, me and you could be marketers, right? Like at this point, like you got a whole show and a whole production put together. So it's just kind of starting to show like what individuals can be capable of. And so you want to make sure that you're not getting caught up into where like you're being phased out, and you want to be the one bringing these new ideas, and sort of these new innovative types of strategies to the company, so that way you're showing your value, like you're sort of staying ahead of the game, and versus having someone else saying, hey, actually I found this new app. This app does 30% of what Dana does. Then they start looking at it like, do we really need Dana? Like, so and so that's the way I go about trying to make predictions. And again, I know it's a lot of times my advice is kind of vague, because I don't want to tell you one thing and that only applies to you and your situation, right? And no
Mhm.
one else can really benefit from that advice. And that's why it's important for people to take these self assessments almost quarterly, to understand, all right, what does my finances look like? What does my current reputation at my company look like? What was my last performance review? Is my team growing? Is it shrinking? The last time someone left, did they have to backfill that position? That's also a good sign. If someone leaves your team and they're like, no, we're not going to backfill that role.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's either the work isn't there, or either something, or either the company is kind of staying flat. Like there's no need for the same amount of people on that team. And so I'm able to kind of keep a lot of this stuff in my head, again, just because my whole career has been kind of working behind the scenes and understanding what talent acquisition and retention and kind of talent management and internal mobility looks like. And so I'm able to kind of pick up on these things as they're happening in real time. But for individuals who may not have worked in this particular field, let's say you're an accountant, and so like you necessarily you're just looking down at numbers, you're not necessarily up looking at all the different team sizes and that kind of stuff. Just start taking notes and kind of understanding, like, what are some of these big changes happening in your organization that you see? Like, what are they outsourcing more of the work? And even where are they outsourcing it to? Are they
Mhm.
outsourcing it to companies in the States, or are they outsourcing it to companies overseas, which is a lot cheaper, right? And so even picking up on things like that is starting to understand like how much money my company actually has and is looking to spend on their workforce. Um, and again, I feel like I'm getting kind of granular, but these
No.
are kind of the things that I'm always looking at, like how is the company spending this money, and in what areas and in what way, which sometimes can give you a good indicator of how strong your company may be performing.
No, it's great advice because whatever role you are in, like say the accounting role, you see if there's more money going out, or
Right.
depending on if you're payable, receivable, or if there's more money coming in, you see how much they're maybe spending on headcount. So there are some ways in each person's role that you can kind of see. Like if your territory starts to get bigger and you're in a sales role, it's because they don't have enough people to cover those territories because they start eliminating some roles. So I think there are some signs in every single role. We just like again, we gotta pop the delusion bubble because I was in it. So it's just like pop the balloon, y'all. Pop the
It's,
delusion bubble and
I
look
mean, it's very, it's human nature though, right? Like I
up.
feel and sometimes it comes down to your own personality and how you like to operate. But I'm usually the type of person. My tenure at an organization is usually around like 2.5 years before I'm looking to move anyway, just because I know I can make more money. Now, if I'm in an organization and I'm steadily like progressing, I'm getting new titles, I'm getting raises, I'm getting new experience. Okay, I'm sort of try to see how long I can ride that out, because I usually like to leave an organization like at the top. Like I felt like I
Mhm.
peaked, and now I'm gonna take this experience and take it somewhere else because now it's more valuable externally. Whereas your current company, it was just kind of baked in, like, oh yeah, Nate always gets that stuff done.
Mhm.
Like you can take that somewhere else, and they was like, oh yeah, we've been wanting someone who knows how to do this, and so to them, like it's just more of a valuable skill set. Um, but just the way you want to kind of navigate some of these things is just again making sure that you're always looking for that next opportunity and sort of not getting so, again, not even the bubble, like it's just a state of comfort, right? Like
Mhm.
even interviewing, for most people, like interviewing causes a lot of anxiety, like you're very nervous about it. It's nothing you want to do. Putting together a resume is very tedious, like you're tired of it, you don't want to look at it, it's nothing you want to do. And so when you have a job, most people's mindset is like, I just want to hold on to this job. Like I just want to work and keep a check coming. Like I ain't got time to be out here doing all this interviewing and all that other stuff until you got to make time because because you get laid off.
You got time because you ain't got no job.
Right, right. And so I try to tell people, you don't want to wait until, again, like all you have is time because you're unemployed. If you, even if it's a personal ambition thing, or if you start seeing some signs that maybe you do need to find another job, it's it's great to start looking and getting comfortable with the interviews, getting comfortable updating your resume, getting comfortable having some of these networking calls and things like that while you have money coming in. Because again, you can show up to the call a lot more confidently.
Yeah.
Um, you're not going to um, I don't want to say oversell yourself, but I can tell like when someone's been out of work for a while and I'm like interviewing them on the screen, like I mean they're throwing everything at me.
I can
Like
do this and that.
right, right. Everything I say there's like, oh, that's no problem. Like I can say anything. Like, this is gonna be a 3 hour commute. Oh, that's fine. I like the car. Like, it's
Oh,
like so, so there and then recruiters and hiring managers, like they can pick up on that stuff. Like if you coming across like too desperate and just
mhm.
like, nah, like that's we don't really know if they genuinely are a good fit or they're just trying to say every single thing that we're saying just to be like, okay, yeah, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. When we know this stuff isn't fine, especially as a recruiter. Like I know the things that I can tell you about this job or this company that's a little bit of a turn off, and you want to find the person who is like, yeah, like let me think on it, or actually that's not a problem because XYZ. Like they kind of have a good reason to come back. But those people who just whatever you say, I'll take whatever pay, I'll take whatever, it just doesn't make you seem valuable as a candidate. And so it's much better. I'm sure, I mean, there's nothing your audience doesn't know, but it's just much better to navigate your job search while you're actively working. And then you can also pull from like real time experience. Like you can show up to a call saying like, this is actually what I'm working on, or
Yeah.
this is what I just did. Versus when you've been out of work for like 2-3 months, like sometimes it's so hard to recall, what was that system, like what was the process I did, or what was the outcome of that particular situation. And so sometimes it's easier to kind of just, I guess, boss up, for less of a better term, and just navigate a job search while you're also actively working, to sort of be able to increase the results of what you may get from that. Even when we was at Thrive, and the lady stood up and she said, looking for a job is like a job, which of course, like everybody been saying that for years. It
Yeah.
is. I
Mhm.
mean, we all know that, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you can't shy away from it. Like, it is what it is.
What it is, it's your new job until you get a real job.
Right, right. I don't have kids, but I'm sure any parent would be like, being a parent is a job, like, and so we all have to juggle these different jobs anyway. If you're talking about juggling a job finding process while
Mm.
you're in a job that is for your own benefit, like I feel like that's worth doing. Um, if
I feel
if
like
that's
we
something that you want to do.
feel like we could talk about so many things, Nate. This is really good. But I want to go back to something because we talked about, of course, we met at a conference, networking, right? And you talked a little bit about personal branding. So I want to post on that a little bit. And then I also want to talk about AI because it was a tech conference. And I know that you have to be using certain tools. So personal branding, something that I was kind of not thrust into, but really once you lose that identity of being whoever from whatever organization, is like, all right, what am I going to do next? I'm never going to be whoever from whatever organization. I'm going to carry Dana Duckworth, big speaker, into any role that I get or any person that I work with. So talk about the role of personal branding for candidates. And is this something that you express to people that you work with when they are seeking roles?
So I feel like in this, new age that we live in, especially with all the social media, right? Even LinkedIn. Like I feel like at this point, LinkedIn is social media.
Oh, it
Um,
is.
yeah, I remember when I first got on there, it was like
Back
you'll
in
get
I was only, it definitely was like none of what it is today. I don't even think we could do pictures at that time. But
you
it
would
was,
get ran off. Like you would get ran off LinkedIn if you. I remember people having to post like, I know this isn't professional, but I got
like,
married this weekend. Like I just wanted to share and be like,
take
nobody
it
wants to see
down.
that. Yeah, nobody wants to see that. This is about work. It used to be harsh on there. But I actually like the blending of it now, because you do get to see someone's personality a little bit more and kind of the things they are into as it pertains to their job or personal. Kind of, it just depends on how far you want to go.
Some people go too
um
far. Some of y'all
yeah, I mean, don't it still is the main purpose of LinkedIn is still for networking
professional
and, yeah,
network.
and finding jobs and things like that. So I wouldn't, you have Instagram for like the completely irrelevant things. So
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of go take that over to that side. But to see, someone post a reel of the conference they attended,
Mm-hmm.
or to show that they're doing podcasts, like all that kind of stuff. Now, like you generally are looking at almost like a person's like a living resume. And so
Yeah.
that's why I like to tell people, um, even if you have a well written resume and you submit it over, like the first thing I'm gonna do is click on your LinkedIn and see what that look like. Like, does it match? Is it dry? Like, do you have an updated picture?
Is
Do
it
you have,
dry, y'all?
yeah. Like
They
I'm
kind
saying,
of relevant.
those dry LinkedIn's, it take you down a peg, because sometimes the best way to sell you to a hiring manager is literally just to send them a link real quick and say, hey, found this person, or this person's interested. And with a nice LinkedIn, like you can literally get like a snapshot. And not only that, like you can then look at like, oh, we know the same people. Like, oh, we follow the same companies. Oh, this person is actually used to work for this. I know somebody that worked there. And so you start connecting these dots. And so I think one of the biggest benefits of personal branding is almost like what you're doing is really just building like familiarity with yourself in some way, shape, or form. Even if you're not like super popular or an influencer or something like that, like when you start to actually get active on LinkedIn and you're posting different things, like people aren't going to like it. Like a lot of people a lot of people don't click like and they don't comment, but they see it, like it's getting views, it's getting impressions. And so whether you realize it or not, like you are being recognized by someone for something. um and so I do go around to a lot of conferences and a lot of people like, you look familiar. And it still kind of throws me off a little bit, but I was like, probably LinkedIn or something like that. And most of them like, oh, you was on Cyrus, like Texas, like that's usually
Mhm.
where a lot of folks see me. But still, like that, even that was a very intentional move to start to build my brand. And I just think we're getting to a point now, it's taken a lot more than just a well written resume to kind of stand out. And
Yeah.
so I've told candidates before, like if I have three candidates in front of me, all three of you have similar backgrounds, and then I go to all three of your LinkedIn's and I see that you are like an enthusiast in this industry, like you have certificates, you go to conferences, you're writing blogs about it, the future of it, sort of how it's changing, how AI is going to impact it. And then the other two candidates, one has barely any LinkedIn presence, and then one, has like a little something. I'm gonna go with the one who has all that LinkedIn activity. Like, okay, like this person seems like not only are they, someone who's very knowledgeable, but they enjoy this. Like, let me talk to this person first. And so even in that, very sort of like small example, like that one person who has taken the time to build a brand around themselves and showing interest in their industry is already standing out from the other two very strong resumes. And so just that alone is why I would suggest someone to start to build some sort of brand.
Yeah, y'all. I tell you, LinkedIn is my favorite form of social media. I sometimes, if I'm out late at night at a club or out on the Don Julio, I delete it off my phone because I will sit there and scroll LinkedIn in the way that I would my Instagram, or for some people, Facebook, because LinkedIn is literally the only platform that's ever brought me revenue. Like Instagram, I can post all the pics I want. It's not bringing me any revenue, right? But when I'm intentional about LinkedIn, I'm able to make different connections. People have different opportunities. I'm a speaker, so the more that I am visible, and even just finding different opportunities to speak, LinkedIn is literally the place for anyone who's looking for anything professionally. So when people tell me that they were like, I don't really use my LinkedIn, I'm like, are you well? Because like, do you want a job? Because this is the
I
place
think
where
I
they link.
think it's I mean, whether you believe me or not, but as a recruiter, I'm telling you, it's it's moving more in that direction. Again, like the examples I'm giving, like I prefer to see a strong LinkedIn versus a strong resume any day. Because
Mhm.
the a LinkedIn, if you already have my attention, I'm gonna reach out and like, hey, let's chat. And I can get more, I can ask the questions I want anyway, versus like the resume, which may or may not be real well written or not. So it's just sort of it gives you, it puts you out there a little bit more. And like anything else, like even if you take it to the social side like Instagram, like usually if you were to meet someone new on Instagram and y'all start to follow each other or something like that, like you can get a feel for that person by their feed, right? Like, okay, like this person travels a lot, this
Mhm.
person's always out eating, this person likes to work out, like this, I mean, like, so you can literally get a feel for this person just off their
Are you gonna
post.
hire them because they are always out here?
No. I was just using that as an example, but I'm just saying, like, getting a feel for a person on LinkedIn is very similar. But I'm saying, like, just kind of understanding, like, what type of, even if I go to a particular profile and they're posting things and I'm reading the comments of something they post, and you got former team members of them saying like, "Oh, you're a rock star. Oh, you were the
Yeah.
best manager I ever had. Oh, I'll never forget the time you did this." Like, all that is valuable. Like, I'm reading all this, like, oh, like this person might be legit. Like, let me reach out. And so it's, again, like it's like a living resume, which can go so much further than just like the 1 to 2 pages that you submit on an application. And I just think over time the resume is going to phase out, and LinkedIn is almost going to be more of a source of truth, because I can literally go on chat GBT right now and say, make me a resume for anything. And it'll
Yeah.
make me sound great. And I never even touched it. And so, like at some point it's like, okay, can we really even trust the resumes we're receiving? I prefer to go look at, this person LinkedIn profile, because it's a little bit more authentic and I can get a better understanding of who this person actually is.
So the chat is saying that you are a LinkedIn celebrity. Were you intentional about building your LinkedIn in a way that has gotten you over 20,000 followers? Listen, I didn't even know because I've been connected with you on Instagram. And I was like, yeah, Nate, be on the show. Da, da, da. And then when I went to add you to the event on LinkedIn, I was like, oh, he got a lot of followers. So you are a LinkedIn celebrity. Welcome, y'all. Follow me back too. Um, was this something you set out to do?
I mean, like I said, I've been recruiting for about 12, 13 years. So a lot of that was just organic. Um, because I'm always on like literally LinkedIn is sort of my go-to for my job, for my work. So it's not anything that I even have the option of necessarily ignoring, right? I have to go on there, I have to be on there, I kind of have to engage. So most of that was very organic. Um, but when I transitioned into tech and when I got to Lyft, I did kind of pick up on things a lot more. And I started being a lot more intentional in following the right people,
Mhm.
creating certain connections, asking people for coffee chats, making more posts, like just being a little bit more authentic and genuine, and the way I might interpret certain changes in the job market, or um, I try not to be too confrontational, but if somebody, if I have a difference of opinion on something, like I know how to respectfully say,
Yeah.
like, well, actually, I've seen something different, or I
Mhm.
see where you're coming from, but have you thought about this? So, I mean, it's again, like it's a way to go about engaging with people on there versus like just trying to tear folks down and just kind of being contrary for no reason at all. But yeah, like after a while, and I would say probably like 2 years ago, maybe, like I did intentionally start to trying to be a lot more active and setting like goals for myself, for how often do I want to post, what do I want to post,
Mhm.
um actually putting like video clips of myself like talking, like that was a big one. um like, because most people don't do that. If you, I think, I can't remember the last stat, but like only on most platforms, like there's only like less than 5% of people actually creating content
Mhm.
to go on those platforms. And so to anyone, like just being confident in starting to write out a post of your own personal thoughts, like that's the first step. And then like if you can go as far as recording yourself, or making some sort of graphic or something like that, like you're already doing more than like 90% of people on LinkedIn. And so it's not that hard to stand out
Mhm.
now. Over time, I think that's going to change, right? You're going to start to see more people have to be more engaged and do more content on LinkedIn. Um, but yeah, you do have to be intentional at this point. Like if you want a brand just isn't going to build itself.
Right.
I know tons of great candidates who nobody just knows, what I'm saying? Like they don't say anything. Like they
Mhm.
probably worked somewhere for a very long time, and they got their next job because they knew someone, and so they never even had to go to LinkedIn. They don't really have a resume. Like they just always been fortunate. Now some shit done hit the fan,
Mhm.
and like I say, the LinkedIn is dry, and so now they're trying to build, like they only have 100 connections. Like like it's just kind of like you have to be intentional and start to build out some of these networks. Um, Networking on LinkedIn is relatively free. Like, what I'm saying? Like the conferences cost. Like you got to fly there, you got to get hotels, you got to pay for tickets. Those same people are on LinkedIn. Like shoot them a note and tell them like, hey, I saw you went to this conference. Actually, I would love to hear about it. Like you can find anything to try to connect with them with, but you want to utilize sort of all your resources in the time that we're in right now, including if you want to jump in like AI and kind of getting certain strategies and plans from ChatGPT or Claude or whomever to try to help you come up with some of these networking strategies.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the technology. First, I want to say that they are loving our conversation in the chat. So I might have to have you back for a part two because they are really enjoying everything that you are
Part
providing.
two gonna cost you. One time
Yes, it is twice. Jeez.
I just
Networking and building. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna name this episode. Your LinkedIn is dry. Um, we'll see if we come up with anything better as we continue the conversation. But let's talk about the technology. What are you using? What are the people that you are working with using? What should job seekers be doing? Because I know ChatGPT, of course, that's one that everybody is familiar with now. If you're not, then your LinkedIn is
Mhm.
probably dry. But ChatGPT is one that everybody is familiar with. What are some other resources, some other systems, processes, technologies, apps that people should be invested in?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is the main one I use. I know there are others I think probably getting to be more advanced, but that's the one I started with, and so that's the one that they keep making these product updates. Now, I literally I talk to it like it's a person. Like I tell it good morning, like
Oh,
like because it has a voice mode now, and so like literally you can
yeah, I
jump
didn't know
on.
that. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
I need to start waking up and telling my ChatGPT, "Good morning." How
man,
you doing? You have
man,
Alexa
it's
that I'm telling that
it's
to.
not first thing in the morning, but like when I sit down at my desk and I'm about to start to figure out a process or draft emails or whatever, I just go to the voice mode and I just open it and let it talk. And I'm like, yeah, good morning. I need your help with something. It's like, great, here to help. Like, what can I do for you? And you literally can just talk like the way me and you are talking right now, and it will like analyze everything you say. And it's like, great, looks like you're looking to, I don't know, create a run of show for your podcast. Like, here are some ideas, and just kind of start dropping some stuff. And so I'm trying my best, again, just being intentional to get very comfortable with how fast technology is moving, because I don't want to get left behind. And I think that's often what a lot of people are feeling as well, right? Like there are all these new systems and tools and stuff that they don't know how to use. And their first response is to get mad at it and say like, oh, it's trying to take our jobs. Like it, whether you whether you're mad at it or you're using it or not, like the companies are going to embrace it. And so like they're going to implement it, and you want to be one of the ones that know how to best utilize it for your own benefit, and not one of the ones that, just constantly are complaining about, oh, this is too complicated, or whatever the case may be. But one of the biggest takeaways I think for your audience, so a lot of resume review is being done by AI now. So I remember it's crazy. Like 2 years ago, I remember being on a podcast and telling the host like, that's a myth. The ATS is not kicking out your resume. It's still a person looking at all of them. That is not the case today. Like,
No, I need to go find that clip.
that is not the case today. Like that is the one of the biggest flip flops I've ever had to make. That is not the case. So I work with a couple of different startups, and thankfully, like I get to like demo a lot of different tools. And so there are like two tools I'm using right now that I have like independently as a consultant. But what I can do is, let's just say one of my clients has a role and there's like 200 resumes that came in. I can literally download all 200 like in a compressed zip file, upload them to that platform, and then copy and paste the job description in, and within seconds, like the platform will like rank all those resumes in order. And so with that, it's like, okay, I'm only gonna look at like the top 25. And so
Wow.
now you got 175 people who may not even get looked at because they didn't take the time to tailor their resumes. So the the age old advice I've been giving people of tailoring your resume is still very relevant.
Mhm.
Because now like you're not even sort of relying on the discretion of people. Like this is a very sophisticated system that's being very black and white with like, do you have this experience or not? So it's
Mhm.
in your best interest to make sure your resume reads as if you have that experience. um and so I guess beating the ATS is something you do have to look out for now. But again, a lot of the age old advice still applies. Like I think networking is still the best way. So even when you see a job that you're interested in, go ahead and take all the steps of applying and submitting your resume, but also reaching out to someone at that organization, specifically either within that department or a recruiter or someone within talent, and sharing your resume with them and letting them know why you're fit as well. Um, but
Yeah.
with ChatGPT and stuff, like the the time it used to take to to redo a resume, and I ain't gonna say I tried my best. I tried for like a couple of weeks. Like I was gonna charge for like resume writing services, and I just learned like I do not like this. Like it was like literally like doing a paper for everyone. And so
Ooh.
I did like 4 or 5, and I was like, that's it. I'm not doing anymore. And so now I just have a template that I share for free. And I was like, I will look at the template after you after you've done it and make
Mhm.
some suggestions, but I can't like just sit down and type out a resume. But now like you can literally just ask whatever AI tool you're using to remember this resume template, or lock in this resume and now apply it for this job,
Yeah.
or apply it for this job, and it'll kind of spit out multiple resumes in a couple of seconds. And so that's not even the excuse anymore of why you can't have
Mhm.
multiple resumes, and making sure that you're tailoring them for each position.
Would you be willing to share this template for free with the Hilarious Nate?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
No
I'll make
problem.
sure I include it in show notes and that I include it in the blog that I'll create post this episode. All right, this is good stuff, Nate. I'm very excited that we had the opportunity to talk about this. I want to talk about how people should approach recruiters because one, don't be weird, but how should people woo y'all? Like, everybody wants to be like, oh, it's a recruiter from such and such. People, especially at conference, they're looking for people like you. They're looking to show themselves off to recruiters. So how should they approach y'all and not be weird?
I say step one is to be intentional for the reason that you're looking to connect with this particular recruiter. For me, my biggest thing, and I hate that I don't have like a pocket full of jobs for people,
Mhm.
is, well, let me take a step back. A lot of people don't understand. Most recruiters work for a company, and so they're only recruiting for the companies that they're working for and or consulting with, which is usually like a handful of positions at that company. And so what you'll get at a lot of networking events is people from all different industries and job fields and functions and career levels just coming up and saying like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And it's just like, I don't, there's nothing I can do with it. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And so again, I think it's important to, one, understand what type of roles or what company that particular recruiter recruits for, and
Mhm.
then that will sort of lead the conversation from there. And so if you walk up to a recruiter and you ask them like, okay, who do you recruit for, what type of roles you recruit for, and it's something completely left field, maybe the best next question should be like, well, I know you're recruiting for engineers. I'm actually a sales professional. Do you know any good recruiters who that recruit for sales roles that you can introduce me to? So maybe the purpose of that recruiter contact is just to connect you with other recruiters. Like, don't I feel like sometimes people try to like squeeze me and just be like, I know you got something, you know what I'm saying? Like, almost like I can just create a role for them. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are thousands of positions out there, but I'm not being paid to fill those roles. Like, I just don't have any knowledge of them. And so usually I just tell people to connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me your resume, and I'll keep an eye out for you.
Mhm.
So again, like, I think it's just important when you're connecting with a recruiter, the best thing you can do is probably just understand, do they specialize? Are they recruiting in a particular type of role? And or what company are they recruiting for? And try to stay on their radar that way. But it's in all my years of recruiting and going to conferences, like, I've never like shaken the hand of a person and then like, you know what, I got a job for you. Like that's never happened. Not to say it can't happen, but it's never happened to me. Like, it's just very unlikely that the stars would align in that way. But the whole purpose of networking is planting those seeds, right? There are individuals I've met before, a year or two later, I'm able to make an intro between them and someone else I met that I
Mhm.
think could benefit them. And so maybe something came from that. But it's tough to kind of go to a conference with the mindset, oh, I'm gonna meet someone here that's gonna like employ me. Like, it's kind of hard to think that it's gonna be that rigid.
Yeah, it's never that easy. Y'all know, like any part of the job seeking process, it takes time. For me, it's like I'll look in my network and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even realize I was connected to this person. It's really taking inventory of who you are already connected with, who potentially is going to be in the space that you're going to next that maybe is connected to that person. Looking at the list of attendees or the list of speakers, because you never know. Like for me, I was so excited to meet Jackie from Textio. And I knew that I was like, she is my target, not for a job, but because like she is an aspiration of mine. Like I love her. So what do? I'm going to her session. I'm going to stand up and ask a question during her session. And then I kind of lost her like that whole day. And then the next day we were at a party and she was sitting there and I was like, I'm obsessed with you. I know that's here, but you are me in the future and I need to be close to you. She's like, you are so cute. I love you. And do you know we hung out all night, y'all? And I could DM her and she answers me. So it's really about being a genuine person. And if you find somebody that you see something in that you feel could benefit you, your career, or your goals, like for me, I just want like Jackie's an icon to me. So I want her to be in my personal life. But whatever it is that you're driving for, like be intentional and don't be a weirdo. Like be genuine about the fact that, like, hey, this is what I'm coming to you for. If we hit it off and have a great conversation, that's a wonderful thing. But you can't expect somebody to be pulling out a golden ticket for you at any networking event. What you can expect is maybe some conversation, maybe some additional time, maybe a new connection, and then maybe a familiar face the next time you're in the next space. So just be mindful, y'all. Recruiters don't have all the jobs in the world to just be giving out, but I am friends with a lot of them. So, you know, welcome to the show. Some of them are in the comments. I see Joy the Recruiter is in the comments. So people are looking to help you, but it has to be a certain position, a certain role, and you have to be the right person for that role. But that doesn't mean you should not keep hope alive. Nate, I want to turn it to you to talk a little bit about your business, your organization, how people can find you, and what you want from anyone who is trying to work with you. How can people best support you and what it is you do?
So finding me, of course, is LinkedIn. That's the best place. I'm on Instagram as Career Hacker Nate. If you want to check me out on there, of course, I'm pretty active on there, but it's just usually a bunch of funny stuff. So again, building yourself. I think more of my personality probably comes through on Career Hacker Nate. As far as my business, so I actually am a independent consultant. I work with startups. So if anyone has any connections with founders or usually like chief operating officers or those C-suite executives at startups, usually around like 50 people or under is my sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always open to connections. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, hey, he's looking to fill roles for you, but I'm just trying to again expand my ecosystem in the startup space. Um, and as far as like partnering with me, working with me in any way, hit me up on LinkedIn if you need some actual like advice. And that's usually all I can offer people is like, hey, like, what's your current situation? What are you trying to do? And it's usually from a perspective of if it was me, like this is kind of where I would put my energy, or if it was me, like I would try to make these connections. And sometimes it's just as simple as your LinkedIn is dry. You need to start there. Like it's like
Okay, y'all. That's the name of the episode. We said it 3 times. Your LinkedIn's dry. Okay.
I mean, I keep coming back to it, but it's for real. Like if you're trying to find somebody and you don't leave the house, like how you gonna find somebody? And so, um, but yeah, like I've been blessed. I've been fortunate as we started this thing out. So I haven't you booed me for um for keeping a job,
Always.
which is crazy. We in a whole new world now. I never thought.
Welcome to the show. It's a wild place.
But now I'm just saying, like I've been fortunate. Like my clients are pretty steady. I keep work coming in, so I'm just kind of blessed in that. So I don't even do like a ton of marketing like for my company or anything. And so again, even that my business is really built off of my network. Like every client I have came through a referral. Literally just people like, hey, Nate's doing this thing and I know he's looking for clients. You're a startup founder. Y'all need to do some recruiting. Y'all should connect. And literally every client I've gotten has just come from that. And so I haven't had to do a ton of like cold outreach and all that kind of stuff to build my business. So it's been great. But I'm always happy to help people however I can. And so just give me a little bit of grace. LinkedIn messaging is sometimes gets backed up a lot. Just because again, like I'm talking to candidates in there, I'm talking to other contacts, future partners and things like that. And so sometimes if I don't recognize the name, I don't click on it right away. And then I set out aside some time to go back and clear it out. But definitely feel free to reach out, even if you want me to look at your resume, if you want to throw 20 minutes on the calendar or something like that to talk through some things, happy to do it.
Yes, and I will be at Afrotech. Nate, are you? I know you were a little. You didn't know for sure. Are you going to be at Afrotech?
I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up. It's I started not to go, but you just never know. You never know how. I always think back to 2020 and not being able to leave the house. So and so now I'm like, if I can get out of the house, I'm gonna go because you never know when things might shut down again. So I'm gonna
Okay,
go.
well, the celebrity himself, career hacker Nate, will be at Afrotech, y'all. Don't be weird. The big speaker will also be there. Be weird with me because I'm weird. Duh. Hey, I want to thank you so much for coming to bring such a wealth of advice for the Hilarious. Like, this was a great episode, and I'm so happy that we got to connect. And if there's anything I can do to help you in any capacity going forward, please let me know because this was really great. We look forward to that template. Also, I'm going to make sure that that resource is available to all of you Hilarious so that you can hack your career like Nate is helping people do. Nate, again, I can't thank you enough. And Hilarious, it's been real, y'all. Thank you for joining for another episode. Big Speaker signing off. Bye.
Thank you.